Cool. Oh, Tony Ann. Hello.
Hey.
Just in time for the start.
Hi, guys.
How you going?
Good.
Good. All right. So today we're going into, this is kind of like the big first kind of shift in thinking. And what we're going to be talking about today is cause and effect, and moving from effect to cause. So basically what we've been doing for a summary over the last couple of weeks is bringing awareness to what's going on emotionally and starting to feel some of these emotions again. Starting to identify where in our lives we are being triggered into particular emotions and how those emotions lead to and cover up these limiting beliefs and limiting decisions. And then what we do to try and overcome them or solve them, or to fix those negative feelings and try and make them better. And then we talked about kind of the stories that we created and how stories affect our lives. And as we move on to today's session, the big shift here is that feeling that Kelsey was talking about being hooked into an emotion and it overwhelming you and taking over, to the point where you actually take actions and make decisions based on that emotion. And oftentimes it can cause us to say things or do things or make decisions that we can later regret. Okay. So we've all experienced that feeling of being out of control. And it's not pleasant. And for I would say for most people that we speak to, that come to us, one of the main things that's happening is the feeling of trying to be in control. Okay, trying to have control over the uncontrollable, which is everything that's happening in the outside world. And when you try and control the things that are happening in the outside world, the only thing that's possible is for you to feel out of control. Because we talked last week about expectations. If you've got expectations about the way things should be, then you are setting yourself up to be let down. Because the truth is that you cannot predict, you cannot control what's happening in this world. That's the whole point of this.
And a lot of the times we get triggered into doing behaviors that we know will give us that certainty, and they're not necessarily very good behaviors, are they? So it could be, finding the Instagram influencer that's going to make us feel the most shit about ourselves, because we know we're going to feel really shit when we look at their posts. Or, going out and spending lots of money on shopping or eating food or drinking, or we look for the thing that's going to give us that certainty when we fail to find that certainty, when we feel like we're out of control. So it is that this topic is a little bit of a I think it takes time to really kind of let it sink in. I think I know I struggled when I heard this concept, when I first heard about it, moving from effect to cause, because I would say to myself, well, I can't be the cause of all the shit in my life, surely. Like, I only want what's good for me. I don't want bad things to happen to me. How could I possibly be responsible for them? But there are a few kind of things we want to talk about to help bridge that gap. It took me a while, so yeah, that's stick with us. That's kind of what I want to say.
Yeah, what we're essentially talking about, we seem to be talking around it, but is my brain is not putting things together tonight. I'm sorry, I'm just not. I'm not there. I've had like a chest infection all day, and I've really been struggling today. And just being honest with you guys, I've had lots of calls today, so my brain is not putting things together right. So I'm struggling a little bit, but we're going to get there for sure. But Miranda is going to take the reins a little bit.
Oh, am I?
Yeah, until I can get my brain back in order.
All right. So
and hey, I'm going to take you guys off mute because I'm going to need your help here, right? So we need some interaction. We need some people talking, asking questions, so that we've got something to talk about. Because I'm not into this lecturing.
Let's start explaining cause and effect first, just so they know what we're talking about, because this is the topic that we're introducing, and this is kind of what we'll be focusing on this week. So can everybody see that little diagram? Yep. All right. So when we talk about being at the effect of things, we're essentially talking about, allowing the outside forces to impact how we feel on the inside, blaming the things outside of us for what's going on in our life, having all the reasons as to why we can do something or why we can't do something outside of us. When we're talking about cause, we're talking about being in control, being in charge, allowing or being sort of aware and in control of the things that come into our space that affect what happens in our life.
So most people out there in the world are living at which side of this equation? Effect, right? Most people that you come into contact with throughout the day are going to have their language full of statements from effect. And basically this is all the reasons why they are in a current situation, or all the reasons why they can't do something or do something. And all of those reasons tend to be outside themselves, and anyone who's ever had a person like this in their life, we talked about it the other week, they've always got someone to blame for, or something to blame for why they are, why they've got what they've got. And a cause basically causes an effect. Okay, so if we're sitting here saying that pushing against the cause, saying it's because of that cause that I'm feeling this way, it's because of it's the effect that I'm experiencing in my life is because of what's happening outside me, then what we're doing is preventing the learning from happening. So we look back into the past and have a look at all of the things that have happened to us and say it wasn't my fault, it was because of my parents, it was because of my upbringing. Some people can even blame the weather for how they're feeling. Okay, so by putting all of what's happening inside you, pushing outside you, we're not able to get through the pain into the learnings. And if we can't get the learnings, then we're destined and doomed to continue to repeat the same things over and over again and get more of the same. I remember having a client come to me, and she was talking about workplace bullying. And she said, I think it was like the 4th workplace that she was in, and she was just about to leave because she was being bullied. And when we got into it, we realized that she had been bullied at every workplace she'd ever been in, and she had been bullied at school. So for this person in particular, she was very happy to talk about all of the reasons why this was happening that had nothing to do with her. Right? It was the boss, it was the colleague, it was the environment, it was the industry, it was the gender.
It's the organization.
Yeah. Right. So I can understand why someone would why someone would have that belief. I mean, it's a very confronting thing to have to look at your 50% and what part you played. It essentially means that you have to question your entire identity in order to say, okay, what part am I playing in this? And that's essentially what we're looking at here, is basically giving up the blame and giving up the outside causes for the situations that you've had in your life, and taking control and realizing that you have actually been in control the whole time.
And we're not necessarily talking about control of the behaviors or, certain acts that people have done. We're talking about our internal state. We're talking about how we feel about a certain scenario, because our perception of what happens, the meaning that we put behind it, that shapes the experience. In the case of your client with the bullying, what did you identify, or did she get to a point where she identified what she was doing? Did she identify some of the behaviors, and what were they?
To feel that someone in that instance is being bullied and is at the effect of other people is an incredibly painful position to be in. Because think about it. You're not in control. You're powerless. You have no power to change. And everything is being determined by things that are outside your realm of control, the things out there. So it's a very kind of reactive place to be in.
It's really disempowering as well.
It's disempowering. Yeah. You can imagine someone in that state really having a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of kind of anger, a lot of these negative emotions that are directed outside themselves to the world. And a person like that have lots of reasons, or another word for reasons is excuses, as to why they haven't got the things that they want in life. And, when you're on your deathbed at the end of all of this, how valuable are those reasons going to be to you? How valuable are the reasons gonna be to you at that point? So, look, we're not saying, and we wouldn't say, we don't actually know, and I don't think anyone knows.
You can't prove anything, right?
Yeah. Can't prove that you are the cause of everything in your life, right? That you're the cause of everything that's ever happened in your past. There's no proof to that. We wouldn't make that claim. But what we're saying is essentially, what would happen if you adopted the belief, or in other words, pretended that you were the cause of everything that you've ever had in your life? If you were to take on that belief, how would that feel? And for most people at this point in the coaching journey, to make this shift, to make the commitment to live at cause, is incredibly empowering. And I might bring Kelsey on.
Can we just stop the share for a second and do that? Okay.
Kelsey?
Yo.
Hey.
Hello.
I told you that we were going to potentially dive into this and have a look, and maybe we could help to use this as an example for everyone. Do you feel comfortable doing that?
Sure. Go for it.
Okay.
Let's do this.
We kind of got to this point, didn't we, about talking about how a belief that you had adopted could be dictating and determining the decisions that you made in life, right?
Definitely.
It's still pretty fresh for you. Could you tell us a little about where we left off?
I guess it was, what is it that actually makes me want to be wanted? And that is something that's been driving me so much. And I guess then I have this fear of rejection. So if I guess I have that fear because if I get rejected, that means I'm unwanted, I'm not needed. So for me, everything I've done, everything I've chosen to do has led me to make sure that I'm wanted.
Right. So it's basically what we're looking at is the belief that I'm not wanted. So what I want you guys to know is over the last couple of weeks, what we've been doing is drilling down to find the belief that's at the core of all of this that's going on. And this is the belief that when you get triggered into an emotion, it spirals all the way down and hits bang, rock bottom at this belief. Now, Kelsey, for you, it was not being asked out on another date on Saturday night, not hearing back, right? It caused you to feel a whole bunch of these different emotions. And this is what you were talking about, being stuck.
Yeah. I was just stuck in that emotion. Then now that I'm more aware, I look at it and I realize how much it wasn't as bad as what I felt it was. Right. If that makes sense.
Right. So the feelings and the emotions and the beliefs that came out from that were almost inappropriate compared to what was the actual reality of it. Yeah. Right. So, and what you're talking about there is that it was just a couple of dates. It was just, it wasn't.
Yeah. Yep. I thought too much about the whole, I actually started making a story in my head about the whole situation, but in reality, it's only been 2 days. We hung out a couple of times. Right. We're just getting to know each other, and I'm getting so worked up and I feel so rejected and unwanted, not needed. I feel like it's like a fear of loss. I felt abandoned after 2 days, and I barely even know this person, and I don't even know if I actually like him. So it's like, yeah.
So
why did I get caught up in that?
And there's kind of an innate understanding, isn't there, for everyone, that what you're feeling is way bigger than just this thing. Like it's coming from somewhere deeper. It's coming from somewhere way long ago.
So we're not always just responding to what's happening to us in that moment. It feels like this is a much deeper thing. This feels like it's an old thing that keeps popping up for me.
And it's that feeling, this again, this again. And just to help everyone, Kelsey, and thank you for doing this. When you didn't hear from him, what were some of the thoughts that came to you?
He doesn't like you, he's not interested in you. how can you be more interesting? What could you have done better? What did you do wrong? Like, did I miss something?
Right. And then it got to the point of that feeling of rejection, and what's the response that you have when you feel that rejection?
I need to reject them first. I don't want them. I don't need them. I don't like them. So it doesn't matter. It's not my loss. So yeah.
So when that potential rejection comes up, when you're faced with that, there's a whole bunch of things that you do automatically to get to the point where you're okay with it, and in actual fact flip it to you need to reject them before they reject you.
Yeah. Yeah. Because then I won't be rejected if I reject them first.
Then I won't be rejected if I reject them first. See, this is a perfect example of how we do things unconsciously. And remember, Kelsey only knows this because we talked about it and because she's practicing awareness. Otherwise, that would all be an unconscious behavior that would happen so quickly and so automatically that she wouldn't even know what's going on. The only thing she would be left with, Kelsey, right, is the feeling of not being wanted, of being rejected, abandoned. That's all.
And just out of curiosity, because obviously I'm not aware of what happened in this session, but with your rejection of him, did you actually like text him and say, I don't want to, or block him or any of that sort of stuff? Or did you just reject him sort of within yourself?
Within myself, like I talk to myself, but in the past, if I look back, I would block them. I would delete them. I would delete all messages and be like, no, like that's it. Like I've chosen to not deal with you anymore. Yeah. Yeah.
So this is where it gets interesting, because how long have you had the belief that you're not wanted?
I'd say I'd go back to high school. Yeah.
So in high school, there's a time, a moment that you can remember the feeling of not being wanted.
Mm.
Do you think that it's possible that it could be, if you think about it, potentially before that?
Yeah, maybe primary school. Yeah.
Primary school. So there was a moment in primary school where that happened. Yeah, that feeling. You remember that feeling of not being wanted. If you go back to the first moment that you remember the feeling of not being wanted, do you think that it's possible that there could be a time before that perhaps you don't remember where it started?
Could have, but I wouldn't know.
Right. Because we can't know the first time. We can only know the times that we remember. But what we know about this stuff, since we've been talking about it, is from that period of 0 to 7, there's a whole bunch of stuff that we absorb, a whole bunch of beliefs that we adopt. And once it goes in at an unconscious level, so deep that we may not know it's there, then isn't it possible that if this belief was adopted at that time and stored so deeply in your unconscious that it could be even from before primary school?
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah.
If there was a feeling of not being wanted that was there from before primary school, do you think that would have an impact on the decisions that you made?
It has. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, I know. I still do it. Obviously, me being more aware of it, like, hasn't been over the past few weeks, but I can trace back into things that I've done that.
Right. So this idea of rejecting before being rejected, do you think that that's a thing that's evolved over time into this specific direction of guys and relationships?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean that that's the specific. That's the.
Cough it out.
Right now, in terms of relationships and men, but do you think that a time before that it could have been something different that may not have been reject others before they reject you, but something that you would have done to protect yourself from the feeling of being unwanted?
Mm.
So here's the thing. We accept a belief about ourselves at a very young age and we put it in, and it goes so deep and it's so painful that we don't want to feel it anymore. So we push it down as deep as it goes, and we squish it down into the corners of our bodies and all the cells of our bodies, and we believe that because we don't want to feel it, we have to avoid it. We have to avoid feeling it. So the belief that I'm not wanted is so painful that we push it down so deep that it becomes the driving force of everything that we do. And I'm not wanted is just an example. It could be I'm not good enough. It could be I'm unworthy. It could be I don't deserve love. It could be a fear of being alone. Any fear is a belief. Okay? Any fear is a belief. Because if you have a fear of being alone, it's the belief that you are alone. The fear of not fitting in is the belief that you don't fit in. Okay, this is how this stuff works. Okay, so Kelsey, do you think that there's potentially the emotion connected with not being wanted that's potentially a fear?
Yep. Yep.
So let's put it out to the audience. What do you think someone who has the fear of not being wanted, what do you think some things that a person like that might do in order to prove that they are wanted and needed? If anyone has any ideas or suggestions, what would a person what might they do? What are some of the things that they might try and do to prove that they're wanted?
Just unmute yourselves and go ahead, whoever wants to share.
Maybe make themselves indispensable.
Make themselves indispensable.
So take on so much that people around may think that everything will fall apart if you're not in control.
Nice.
Type thing.
That's actually such a perfect example. It reminds me of a couple of the girls I used to work with at the bank, where they were EAs and they had a very, very important role. I was also an EA, so I know the importance of that role. But I nicknamed one of them, which is a little bit mean, but I nicknamed her the third pillar of Suncorp because of holding up the building. You know, she was that important. And she put such an emphasis on her, on doing everything for everyone, that she really did become indispensable. People were constantly, they were totally incapacitated to do anything. They always reached out to her for the answers, for help, for everything.
So potentially good for a career. What could be a downside of that behavior, do you think? How might a person like that feel who's doing that?
As someone who has done this in the past, it drains you.
You feel drained.
Yeah, because you just pulled in so many different directions. You can't look after yourself properly.
Right. Tony?
Yeah, overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed.
Busy, but not necessarily productive.
See, yeah. Yeah. Could a person like this say yes when they really mean no? Yeah. Yeah.
What about feeling resentful towards the people who start asking you for things? So did that ever happen? you start getting annoyed when people would ask, when you kind of set it up that they would always ask.
Right.
Yeah.
Could a person like this potentially feel unappreciated for the things that they do?
Yeah, that there's an expectation that they'll do it anyway, so that's okay. So there's things that are put on, but like you say, you've set it up, and people will go, "Oh, we don't have to do that anyway because they'll do it."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So make it very difficult for people to reach out for help or to ask for help.
A perfect example is like staying back late or coming into work early, and the day you do go home on time, people are like, "Oh, you're knocking off early." It's like, no, I'm just going home at the right time.
Yeah. Could a person like this agree to go out on a date with someone who they don't particularly like?
We're just getting nuts.
Of course, yes. I used to do it for many, many years of my life. I used to please my friends because I had my father had office in the city center, and we after work in the evening, I used to invite my friends to my office to have parties. So we drink there, we smoke marijuana there, almost 3 times per week. And after a certain period of time, I said to myself, I don't want to do it anymore. I feel pressure, and I need to go, and I don't want to do this lifestyle anymore. And as soon as I start to try to avoid this stuff, I start to reject my friends. I say sorry guys, I'm busy, blah blah blah. Everyone, all my friends disappear, and I think this way I was wondering to gain some love from some other people, because I didn't love myself probably, and people use me. And I spent maybe 3 years of my life doing this lifestyle, and all these people are not anymore in my life.
Yeah, and I think it also comes back to being available for people, being available. We're the friend that everyone can rely on. When they need something, we're there. And the friend that, we're kind of the one that gets caught up and cancelled on a lot too. I mean, I've lost several friends because of that, where they felt it was okay to just pull, pike on a catch up or a dinner,
and
because we never reacted, we never sort of held our boundaries strong, we never made it known that wasn't allowed.
So it's possible that this person, all of us, could potentially begin to start to build resentments. Okay, and resentments are pretty insidious things, and basically resentment happens when you don't express the things that you're feeling, the anger, or you're giving more than you receive. You're not getting back what you feel like you're putting in, but you don't say anything. So when you say yes when you mean no, and you find yourself in a situation where you're with somebody and you realize the only reason that you're there is because you don't want to not be there, kind of thing. You don't want to let them down, right? So we think about this person who has the belief that they're not wanted, and then goes about their life, and with that fear of not being wanted, begins to do everything that they can to prove that they are wanted, to prove that they are needed, to prove that they are good enough, right? And the harder you work to prove it, the more you feel it. Let me put that in a bit better way. Someone who is good enough or feels good enough or feels wanted doesn't have to prove that they're wanted or prove that they're good enough. They just are. Okay. So the proving of it, or the doing things that you feel you need to do in order to fix the feeling of not being good enough or not being wanted, is the very same thing that causes you to feel it. And the harder you work to prove it, the more you will feel it. So there's lots of people out there who feel that they made a decision that they needed to be rich in order to be good enough. And off they went to make the money. And the more the bank account grew, that feeling of not being good enough just stayed the same. And they hit their first million. They thought the million was the thing that was going to be the thing where they would feel enough. But it didn't happen. So what's left? I mean, more money, right? But the higher the bank account climbed, the more the person felt not good enough. So let's kind of move that into the direction of cause and effect and wrap this up. And what I want for you guys is to understand and make that commitment and that jump from effect to cause. Because when someone has that belief and they operate that way throughout their life, Kelsey, doing all of those things, like you said, rejecting people before they reject you, or in order to protect from the rejection, to just never allow anyone in, just to never open up, just to never show someone who you truly are, because or allow anyone close enough to hurt you. Right? So we run this pattern, this continual pattern that's happening on an unconscious level, where you reject people before they get close enough to hurt you. Yet at the same time, it also proves that you're unwanted. So you're
proving the thing that you're trying to avoid feeling.
Yeah, and you set yourself up into a life of feeling rejected at every turn. And if that starts from a very young age and you practice that throughout your life, you think about it, we can go back to any memory from the past, and it might be an ex-boyfriend, or it might be a bullying incident, or it might be whatever it is, and think, if I go back further, what were the decisions that I made leading up to that allowed that situation to happen? And we can push all the blame outside ourselves, but the truth is that it was the decisions that we made in response to the events that perpetuated a cycle that continued to get the same things in our life over and over again. And we're talking about the feelings, the emotions. Those emotions continued to cycle through. So although they were different situations, it was the same thing over and over again.
So to kind of start wrapping up, we really want to understand that our conscious choices plus our subconscious choices have led us to where we are today. So we don't know about the subconscious stuff. That's like I said, it's like a boat that's being sort of, what's the thing called?
Rudder.
The rudder. I always go to say udder, and I'm like, I know that's not right. I know that's not right. The rudder. That, it steers us where we're going, and we don't even know which direction it's pointing. So all we know is where we kind of end up. We're heading towards the riverbank when really we want to head for the ocean. So the sum total of our conscious choices plus our subconscious choices puts us exactly where we are today.
So here's the thing.
Getting serious. Here's the thing.
Listen up. This is the crux of it all. This is the big moment. Understanding this, when you understand this, is to understand that in actual fact, you have gotten everything that you've ever wanted in your life. You just didn't know what you wanted. So it doesn't matter what you consciously wanted. See, Kelsey, you might have consciously wanted to be wanted. But unconsciously, it was driven by the fear of not being wanted. And the fear of not being wanted is the belief that you're not wanted. And to have an unconscious belief that you're not wanted, your unconscious's job is to prove that, to make it true for you.
Mm.
So it must create scenarios and situations that prove that to you, to align with the identity that has been created.
Because you decided that. You made that decision. For whatever happened, that was your decision that you made, and it locked in. So then the subconscious goes, okay, I'm going to prove that to you. And it proved it over and over and over again.
And it has to. It's doing its job. But that explains how you've gotten everything you've ever wanted. Because the things that you put in your unconscious, it's like once you put something in your unconscious, you sick the dogs on it. You know, and your unconscious goes to work in creating it. So think about all the stuff you've ever gotten in your past, everything you've got now, every situation you're in, all the problems that you say that you have. And the understanding is, shit, I've actually created all of that myself through the beliefs and through the decisions that I've made on an unconscious level, plus the conscious decisions. But remembering the conscious decisions, they're all based on the unconscious belief anyway. So, you know, the decision that I made to be nothing like my dad, right, meant that all of the positive things that I saw in him, I went the total opposite. So I became, you know, decided to be incredibly lazy and disorganized, and you know, he had an incredible work ethic, so I decided to be the opposite of that, right? And then I wonder why I get into the position where, you know, all the positions that I got myself in, horrible positions, right? All my choice. It's always been your choice. You've always been in control. It's just that the unconscious beliefs went in at a time before you consciously chose them. So how does that feel to know that?
It feels like there's, definitely a shift, because then I guess if I just actually embraced not being wanted, and actually didn't really have that as my main force in my decisions, then they're just going to change completely. So like when I think about my decisions, it's like, well, if you're unwanted, it doesn't even matter. Like not having that as a priority, kind of looking at okay, if I'm not wanted, cool. Don't need to be. So it kind of does create that shift in thinking about your decisions. Yeah.
One very quick thing. We'll talk about values later, maybe in our one-on-one sessions, but I had a value of loyalty. One of my top values was loyalty. And I thought loyalty was such an important thing. I need to have loyalty. When I did this work and actually looked at my value system, it wasn't actually about loyalty. It was the opposite of loyalty, which was not being cheated on. So not being betrayed. So my focus wasn't on attracting loyalty. It was avoiding being cheated on. That was my focus. And that was my fear. So that's exactly what I got. That's all I'm focusing on. The subconscious is looking for things to prove itself. And prove the belief, prove the fear.
Yeah, that's huge, right? Because the feeling of being wanted, to want to be with someone in order to feel loved is very different from wanting to be with someone in order to avoid feeling alone.
Mm.
Right?
Very different value system.
It's a very different setup. One's going to guarantee that you feel alone. The other one's going to guarantee that you feel loved. So what I'm saying here is that these all went in at a time in your life where you had no conscious choice. The decisions that you made were decisions that you made as a child, and they went in deeply, and they affected everything. But you're sitting here right now listening, and you're in this program, and essentially what you're here to do is to question all of those beliefs and to understand how powerful you have been in creating the very thing that you most wanted deeply. How does that feel, knowing that now, through what we're going to teach you, you can actually take those beliefs and actually choose the ones that you want to install,
re-engineer them,
and flip them and change them so that you can actually use the power of your unconscious to get the things that you want. How does that feel? It's different, hey?
That was very enthusiastic. Thank you.
That said it all. The price is right.
You get a car, and you get a car. You get a car.
Okay, so that's basically it. Cause and effect.
So the question is, which side of the equation are you on?
So
that's what we're looking at this week.
As we bring awareness to the cause and effect, what I want you to do is to sharpen your focus on this question and look at it and notice it when you hear people, when you talk to people. Because I'm telling you, 95 to 99% of people, the words that they say are going to be from the effect side of this equation. Okay? When you catch up for coffee with someone, just listen to what they say. And most of the time, they're going to be talking about some person, something that happened, some reason. I mean, being sick is a perfect example. Most people describe being sick as, I came down with the flu, I caught the flu, or it's hit me, or it's going around, or it's something that's outside.
Someone gave it to me. Someone sneezed on me on the bus.
I walked out, or my parents would say, you walked outside without shoes on and you caught the flu.
My grandmother was, your kidneys weren't covered up. They weren't warm enough.
Right. It's putting all of this stuff outside yourself. Right. When you take this on to radical, and I'm talking radical responsibility is really what we're talking about here, is to say that I am the cause, I am in control, I am in charge of absolutely everything. And you don't have to believe it, really. You just have to pretend. You just have to pretend that you're in control, because the feeling of the feeling of empowerment that comes from that is the key. That feeling of empowerment is essential. So anytime you put anything outside yourself and say, that's not me, it's not because of me, I'm not to blame, you lose the ability to be in control. You disempower yourself.
And there is a huge difference between blame and responsibility also.
Yeah, because blaming yourself...
Blaming is shame and guilt and all sorts of stuff like that.
Well, blaming yourself is just another form of being an effect.
Right.
We just take ourselves to be the thing that's causing it. It's not helpful at all. Okay? So, guys, take your power back. Take your power back and place the power back inside yourself. Okay? When those thoughts come, when those beliefs come, it's your obligation to stop them, to question them, to shift them, to be aware of them. Okay? Take your power back. You are in control. You are in control of creating your life. Whatever happened in the past has nothing to do with the now. It's got nothing to do with what's coming in the future. When you create a vision for your future, it cannot be based on the past, because as soon as it's based on anything from the past, it's already corrupted. The same way that in the past you based your life on these unconscious beliefs and decisions. I always say, don't let reality get in the way of your dreams. Don't let reality get in the way of your vision. Right? Create that vision for your life. What is it that you want to create? And focus on that. Okay?
All right.
Cool.
Let's quickly just open up if anyone wants to say anything before we wrap up. Should we unmute everybody?
how did you find? Any thoughts or any final comments? Let us know.
Thank you, Kelsey, for sharing. Really
okay.
appreciate it.
Yes, thank
Big
you.
round of applause and thank you,
Not alone.
Kelsey.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I used to be ashamed of, but now I just don't care.
Right, because they're all stories in it. Right, we're going to clear them all of you guys. That
Yeah.
what happened with
Okay.
those layers right down to
Into bed, please, quick.
clear.
No, just leave her. I'll be in a minute. Go to.
Okay.
I missed that completely, Nathan. Sorry.
It was so powerful. It would have been the biggest shift you've ever experienced. Just those.
Yeah, I got it. Thanks. That's awesome. It was amazing.
Byron, can you fill Tony in?
Yeah, he said, "Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story."
I think you've. I do believe that too, but yeah, that's basically. Don't let the truth get in. I like that. Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. Create your story. Okay.
All right, guys. All this week, hopefully, or next week.
Yeah, and if you haven't booked it for this week, go ahead, book it and reach out. Yeah. Bye.
Okay,
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.